So, I mean, every year, Fortune 500 companies spend billions, like literally billions of dollars on culture consultants, brand new break room furniture, lavish corporate retreats, you name it.
Right, yeah, the whole package.
Exactly. And you know the feeling. You walk into the office on a Monday morning, or you log into that big company-wide virtual town hall, and there it is, the brand new corporate initiative.
Oh, the shiny new initiative. Always a classic.
Always, you get the new set of core values plastered on some poster with like a soaring eagle on it.
Yep, or a mountain peak.
A mountain peak, exactly. And the CEO gives this rousing speech. Everybody gets a free branded coffee mug. And the mandate is just super clear, like we are changing our culture.
Right, but then, I mean, you fast forward 6 months and absolutely nothing feels different.
Nothing. It's the exact same underlying frustration, the same tension, the same bottlenecks. It just kind of makes you wonder, why does company culture seem practically immune to change no matter how much money we throw at it?
Well, it's honestly the ultimate corporate paradox because organizations routinely treat culture like it's a marketing campaign.
Oh, that's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah, the underlying assumption is basically that if leadership simply rebrands the messaging, the messy, complex human behavior inside the building will magically align with the new font and the new mission statement.
Right, like a new logo fixes everything.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
the gap between the values on the wall and the reality on the floor is usually, well, it's a canyon. You just cannot rebrand human psychology.
And that psychological reality is exactly our target today. So welcome to this deep dive. For you listening, whether you're, I don't know, managing a division of 500 people or you're just trying to survive the weekly status meeting without totally losing your mind, this one is for you.
It really is for everyone.
It is. We are looking at a new article from the Phoenix Performance Partners, and I gotta say, it offers a complete paradigm shift for understanding organizational behavior.
It really does. It completely flips the script.
So our mission today is to unpack why true culture lives completely below the surface, identify the unconscious patterns secretly running our work lives, and figure out how to shift from living what they call by default to living by design.
Yeah, and to really set the stakes for this, we have to look at a concept originally championed by the psychologist Carl Jung. He famously said, and I quote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate."
Wow. I always found that quote just a little ominous, to be honest.
It is a bit dark, right?
Yeah, it sounds like we are all just like sleepwalking through our decisions.
It is unsettling, but applying that lens to the workplace changes everything. I mean, think about the language we use in the office. We constantly say things like, well, that's just how things are around here.
Oh, or that's just how management operates. I hear that one all the time.
Right. We treat toxic or stagnant environments like fate, like they're the weather, and we just have to bring an umbrella and deal with it.
Yeah, like it's completely out of our control.
But what we call just how things are is actually unrecognized, collective fear. It's thousands of unconscious behaviors running on this infinite loop.
Okay, let's unpack that because it fundamentally challenges how most companies operate, I think. Like, we're conditioned to think of culture as the tangible perks.
The benefits, stated values, Friday happy hours.
The ping pong table in the break room.
Yes, the infamous ping pong table.
Right, but to understand what culture actually is, we kind of have to dismantle what it isn't.
Well, the ping pong table is just a distraction. Rolling out new core values or hanging fresh posters rarely moves the needle because, frankly, it fundamentally misdiagnoses the problem.
Yeah, it's treating the symptom.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you can spend $10 million on a corporate rebrand, but if you do not address the underlying nervous systems of the people doing the work, you're doing nothing.
Okay, that makes me think of like building a house with major foundation issues.
Oh, yeah. Good analogy.
Right. Typical corporate culture initiatives are basically like slapping a fresh coat of premium, super expensive paint onto a crumbling, structurally compromised wall.
Yes, exactly.
You can change the color to like synergy blue, but the structural integrity underneath hasn't been touched at all. The termites are still in the studs.
And eventually the wall collapses anyway. True culture isn't a singular massive thing you can just paint over. The article defines it as the sum of 1,000 default behaviors that nobody consciously chose.
That is just wild to think about. It's not the big Q3 strategy pivot. It's the tiny little reactions happening in the hallway or, on Slack or in the margins of the day.
Yeah, and the collateral damage of that is that those default behaviors, which is the real culture, they only reveal themselves when people are stressed or challenged or afraid.
That makes sense.
Because when things are going smoothly, profits are up, and everyone just got a bonus, it is incredibly easy to uphold the shiny values on the poster.
Oh, for sure. Stress is basically the corporate truth serum.
Always. I mean, the moment a major deadline is missed, or a key client threatens to walk, or budgets get unexpectedly slashed, that is when the real culture steps into the light.
The facade just drops.
Completely. How do people react under sudden pressure? Do they turn on each other and start pointing fingers? Do they hide in their cubicles? Do they suddenly start micromanaging everything?
Right.
That automatic knee-jerk reaction, that is the actual culture of your organization.
So if I'm hearing this right, culture itself doesn't actually transform. We treat it like a pet we can train or a machine we can just tune up. But culture doesn't transform because, well, people have to transform.
Yes, and people can only transform when they understand the mechanics of their own reactions.
Right.
If real culture is driven by these unconscious, stress-induced behaviors, we need to examine what those behaviors actually look like biologically and psychologically.
Which brings us to the default success strategies from the article. And I have to admit, reading through these felt a little like a personal attack.
It usually does.
It's like holding up a mirror to the absolute worst version of yourself at work.
Well, discomfort is usually a pretty good sign you're looking at something accurate.
Yeah.
Under pressure, the human brain essentially just short circuits.
The fight or flight response.
Exactly. The amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for processing fear and threat, takes over. And the thing is, it doesn't know the difference between a physical predator and a passive-aggressive email from your boss.
That is terrifying, but also explains a lot.
Right. So when that threat response kicks in, every single one of us relies on one of 4 default success strategies. And those are control, connection, harmony, or accuracy.
Okay, let's break those down because seeing the mechanism behind them is so fascinating. Let's start with control.
So when the fear kicks in, someone whose default is control will instinctively just start grabbing the steering wheel. Their brain perceives chaos as a physical threat, so to feel safe, they micromanage.
Oh, we all know that, boss.
Yep, they become overly directive, they bottleneck decisions, and they just entirely stop trusting their team.
Right. And then there's connection. This is like the classic people pleaser on overdrive, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
From an evolutionary standpoint, being cast out of the tribe literally meant death. So under stress, the connection default over-indexes on making sure everyone likes them.
So what does that look like at work?
They blur professional boundaries, or they take on way too much work to avoid disappointing anyone. Or they might struggle to hold their direct reports accountable because they are terrified of losing the relationship.
I see that all the time. Actually, I've done that. And it kind of dovetails into harmony, too, which is all about smoothing things over or retreating.
Exactly.
Like the meeting gets incredibly tense. There's a massive elephant in the room regarding a failing project. And instead of addressing it, this person cracks a joke, or they change the subject, or they literally just withdraw from the conversation entirely just to preserve the peace and conserve energy.
Yeah, avoiding the conflict becomes the only goal, even if it totally tanks the project.
Wow.
And finally, we have accuracy.
Oh, I have a personal anecdote for this one. I have absolutely been paralyzed by the accuracy defaults.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, totally. I remember being up at like 2 a.m. once, staring at a massive spreadsheet for a project launch, running the exact same pivot table for the 5th time, completely terrified to hit send on the email. I was convinced that one misplaced decimal point was going to ruin my entire career.
That is the textbook definition of the accuracy default right there.
Mm-hmm.
Under pressure, this person reaches for more data.
More data, always.
They freeze in analysis paralysis because the fear centers in their brain are screaming that if they just have one more metric, one more case study, they won't make a fatal mistake.
Okay, but I have to push back here for a second.
Go for it.
Aren't accuracy and connection actually good things in a business? I mean, I want my accountant obsessed with accuracy, and I want the sales team to be world-class at connection. Why are we framing these strategies as negative defaults?
That is the exact trap most organizations fall into. Look, these defaults are not inherent flaws, and they aren't bad traits. They are survival tactics wired into our neurology. The issue isn't the action itself, it's the driver behind the action.
The driver, meaning why the action is happening in that specific moment.
Precisely. Are you seeking accuracy because the quarterly tax filing objectively requires it? Or are you obsessively running pivot tables at 2 a.m. because you're terrified of being publicly blamed by the CEO if something goes wrong?
Oh, Yeah, that's a big difference.
There's a psychological mechanism at play here, fueled by what the Phoenix Performance Partners call the critic.
The critic. So that's the inner voice sitting beneath these defaults.
Yes, the critic is the ancient software running the threat response. It's the voice telling you that you aren't enough, that you're going to be found out, that you're fundamentally unsafe.
Imposter syndrome on steroids.
Basically, when you are operating on autopilot, the critic hijacks the brain and drives the car entirely with fear.
So it's the difference between a conscious strategic choice and a knee-jerk survival reaction. Like if my accountant double checks the numbers as a best practice, fantastic.
Right.
But if they're having a panic attack over a typo because the critic says they're worthless, that is a fear-based default.
Exactly. And when those strategies remain unconscious, they dictate the entire culture through fear. You just cannot out-strategize the critic with a better software tool or a catchy mission statement.
You have to catch it in the act.
Yes. The goal is catching the neurological pattern in the act.
Yeah.
When you feel your heart rate spike and you get that overwhelming urge to take control or retreat into harmony, you have to pause and ask yourself a fundamental question. Is fear or love driving the moment?
Okay, wait, stop right there. Love. In the middle of a Q3 earnings meeting.
I know.
Because if I walk into a boardroom and ask the CFO if love is driving our financial projections, they're going to laugh me right out of the building.
Fair enough. It sounds absurd if you define love as romance, or like holding hands around a campfire. But in a corporate context, love translates to purpose.
Purpose, okay.
It means psychological safety. It means acting out of genuine care for the work, a commitment to the team's shared mission, and a desire for a positive outcome, rather than just frantically trying to cover your own behind to avoid punishment. Fear is defensive. Love is expansive.
Okay, that makes so much more sense. It's like, am I micromanaging this project because I care deeply about the client's success, which is purpose or love, or am I doing it because I am terrified of looking incompetent, which is fear?
Making that exact distinction is the literal pivot point between living by default and living by design.
But this brings us to a massive logistical problem.
Okay, what's that?
Well, if we know how this works on an individual level, shifting from the critic's fear to conscious purpose, why do so many company-wide transformations stall out? Because we see this constantly. Leadership brings in expensive consultants. They genuinely want to make things better. They have the budget, and it still falls completely flat.
Well, transformations quietly die when self-awareness becomes a luxury reserved for the executive floor.
The executive bottleneck.
Exactly. Think about the typical rollout. The C-suite goes off-site to some retreat in Sedona for 3 days.
They do the ropes course.
Right. They do the ropes course. They do the deep, uncomfortable inner work. They map out their own default strategies. They have a massive awakening about how their need for control or accuracy has been terrorizing the staff.
A real breakthrough.
And they return to the office. They start leading from a much more conscious place, and they just assume the culture will magically follow suit.
Okay, I have an analogy for this. It's like the executives just upgraded the main server's operating system.
Oh, I like this.
Right. They're running on this brand new, highly self-aware OS, but they totally forgot to push the update to all the individual computers on the network.
Yeah.
They expect everything to run smoothly, but the network crashes because all the individual machines are still running the old, buggy software.
This server analogy works so well for IT, but the trap there is that humans aren't software. You cannot force a patch update on human psychology.
Right. You can't just mandate an epiphany.
Exactly. The CEO might be acting from a place of conscious design, but the supervisor on the warehouse floor and the teammate working the front desk are still running their old, unexamined defaults. They're still reaching for control or retreating into harmony because no one ever gave them the tools or the time to see their own neurological patterns.
So the CEO is walking around feeling enlightened, talking about vulnerability, and the warehouse manager is just trying to hit a quota and avoid getting yelled at.
It's a total disconnect. And if you look at internal data when companies do this, the employee survey numbers climb upstairs in the executive suite, but they stay completely flat everywhere else. The leaders feel changed. The employees just feel confused. You cannot mandate psychological growth from the top down.
You can't just send a company-wide email saying, effective immediately, please stop acting out of unconscious fear and start living by design. Thanks, management.
It ignores the reality of human resistance.
Yeah.
True systemic change requires democratizing self-awareness. If only the top 5% of the company understands their inner critic, nothing durably moves. The top-down mandate is fundamentally the wrong tool for the job.
Which naturally leads to the million-dollar question, right? How do you scale deep psychological self-awareness to 5,000 people? I mean, you can't put an entire multinational corporation in a drum circle. So how do you actually deliver this update to everyone?
The sheer logistics of democratizing self-awareness are staggering, which is exactly why the Intendrix Collection was built. The whole purpose of this platform is to solve the problem of scale, putting the framework for self-awareness into the hands of every single employee, not just the executives with the budget for a retreat.
But how does technology facilitate a deeply uncomfortable personal journey? Because honestly, scaling vulnerability sounds like an oxymoron.
It requires a layered approach, because solitary insight rarely survives the stress of a team environment. Intendrix starts with self-paced lessons to help individuals map out the unconscious patterns running their behavior. It gives them the framework to identify whether they are a control, connection, harmony, or accuracy default.
Okay, so they do the private work first, safely.
Right, but if it stops at a private journal entry, it is useless. The second and most critical layer is leader-guided discussions. This takes the private insight and builds a shared organizational language.
Oh, having a vocabulary changes everything.
It removes the shame. Suddenly, a team can openly discuss, hey, we are under a tight deadline, and I know my default under stress is to overanalyze for accuracy, so I need you all to call me out if I start falling into analysis paralysis.
That is brilliant. You aren't accusing someone of being a roadblock. You're both recognizing the psychological mechanism happening in real time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Intendrix also integrates individualized behavioral coaching tools and community platforms to ensure the work is lived over time, rather than just watched once in a mandatory HR video and immediately forgotten.
We've all seen those videos.
Right. The entire ecosystem is built around their tagline.
Yeah.
Live by design, not default.
It is essentially giving the front desk teammate the exact same framework that the CEO got at the fancy retreat, but structured in a way that the whole team can process it together.
Yes, but there is a crucial philosophical point to make here, too. The ultimate goal isn't just to increase daily active users on a piece of software.
Right.
The software is merely a vehicle. The true goal is giving every single person a way to see the ancient survival mechanisms they could never see alone, and then giving them the power to choose their response.
So what does this mean for you, the listener, today? If you're sitting in your car or at your desk right now and you do not have a massive corporate budget or access to this whole Intendrix platform, you might be thinking, this is great theory, but where do I even begin?
You start by doing the very thing you would ask of everyone else in your organization. You cannot change the collective until you change the individual. You start with your own nervous system.
Here's your actionable homework for the week. Your mission is to try to catch just one of your own defaults in the act.
Notice the exact instant the pressure hits, a deadline gets moved up, or a client sends a terse email. Notice your biological reaction. Do you immediately reach for control and start barking orders?
Or do you start smoothing over a glaring conflict just to keep the peace?
Do you retreat, or do you start obsessively overanalyzing a simple decision?
Catch the critic in the act, and when you do, when you feel that ancient autopilot kick in, hit the pause button, take a breath, and ask yourself that one honest question.
Is fear or love driving me right now?
Is fear or love driving me? If you can ask that often enough, that is where culture actually begins to shift. Not on the posters on the break room wall, but in the unconscious one awakened person at a time.
And to push this one step further, I really want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
We have spent this entire time dissecting workplace culture. You know, the corporate environment, the boardrooms, the Slack channels. But these default survival strategies, reaching for control, clinging to connection, forcing harmony, obsessing over accuracy, they do not magically switch off when you clock out at 5 p.m.
Oh man, they follow us home.
They absolutely do.
Ah.
If these fear-based patterns are secretly running the office, how might these exact same defaults be secretly driving the conflicts in your personal relationships?
Wow.
Think about your home life. What happens when two totally different default strategies collide under the same roof? What happens when a control default marries an accuracy default and they're trying to navigate a highly stressful family crisis? The exact same unconscious fears that stall a corporate initiative might be the very things creating friction at your own dinner table.
That is going to keep me up at night. The realization that you might be like micromanaging your weekend plans because your amygdala thinks you're being chased by a tiger.
Exactly.
It perfectly brings us back to where we started. Whether you are trying to fix a toxic culture in a massive corporate office, or you are just trying to communicate better in your own living room, slapping a fresh coat of paint on it will never work.
Yeah.
I have to look at the foundation. You have to understand the defaults. Stay curious, keep digging into those unconscious patterns, and we will see you on the next deep dive.